Hey, so let's look at the fourth part. At the end of part 3, we saw Party foul Alvarez. He then kicked the ball to prevent a quick restart, which the ref deemed as an obstruction of play and so gave him a yellow for it. As the match restarts, we see Kovacic has the ball, but he's getting pressed from behind by Odegaard. He falls down, but still manages to pass the ball to Akanji. Rodri raises his hands asking for a foul, but ref is not interested. Grealish drops to give option. Akanji can see that Grealish is not in the right body profile to receive. I mean, he's marked tightly and is facing backwards. Playing to him will put him in a tough spot, but Akanji really has no other option. Saka's pressing him hard. He has to release the ball quickly, so he plays to Grealish. White comes up upon him immediately. He can't let him have the space to turn or even to look up. Grealish doesn't have any option here. He receives the ball with the sole of his foot and tries to hold White off. Saka sees that it's a 1v1 on the sideline. He comes to make it a 2v1. Something happens and the ball goes out of play. Everybody raise their hand to claim it. Ref gives it to City. Arteta looks at the line ref who's awarded it to Arsenal and goes ballistic. The ref is forced to change his decision. He gives it to Arsenal despite protests from City. Arteta keeps shouting at the ref. He's using this opportunity to build pressure on him. Saliba drops to provide a safe back throw option. Haaland intends to stay up to cover the pass option to Saliba, so he tells Alvarez to close down Partey. Bernardo comes in on defensive duty and to cover Rice, else he would have been unmarked in a lot of space. Players scan as nothing unexpected is happening with the ball. White's looking for an option, but everybody's marked, so he keeps holding the ball. Partey tries to move from behind Alvarez, but Alvarez will stay with him. Odegaard realizes that they're standing too wide. He starts calling them to come closer. Rodri scans to see who's he calling and notices Rice drop. Rice looks back and realizes the problem. He too calls Timber to come closer. Bernardo decides to not follow Rice. I guess he doesn't want to leave behind this big space in midfield. Rice scans back to check if Bernardo's following him. Rodri sees Rice coming into space. He notices that he is about to receive it, so he charges on to close him down. Rice notices Rodri's press. Timber comes closer, but he isn't giving an option. Rather, he's trying to mark Bernardo. I'm not sure why he would do that. White realizes that the moment to throw to Rice has passed. He turns to look down the line to find some other option. Grealish raises hands to say, "How long?" Rice scans to read what's White looking at. Rodri too scans to read where's he looking. Over there, though we can't see it in the frame clearly yet, Saka and Kai were both dropping, pulling their markers with them. Saka stops and turns to run, expecting White to throw in behind. Kai keeps dropping to get into this space. Diaz tells Akanji to stay on Saka as he moves up with Kai. Odegaard's again pointing to something. Rodri notices him do that. He looks to understand what he was saying. Notice that while doing all this, he's also been moving backwards to get into the space that he had earlier seen Kai coming into. Kai sees that his space is gone. He knows that it's not coming to him, so he curves his run to get back forward. And we notice a brilliant example of opposite movements. As Kai moves up, pulling Diaz with him, Saka drops into the space left behind by him. And that's where White throws. Kai thinks it's coming to him. He starts backing up into Diaz and extends his arms to hold him back. Saka and Akanji see that it's coming to them and they get ready to jump for it. Notice how both pull back their arms and swing them to propel themselves up, but Akanji swings them higher and consequently is able to jump higher. Also notice that when they jumped, they were both standing square, but in the air, Akanji twists his body to get sideways as he hits the ball. This gives him more stability and a better landing posture. Now notice how compact both teams are. 9 City players and 8 Arsenal players are in this small frame right now. Alvarez rushes to the ball. Partey tracks him closely. Rodri too tries to run to it, but Rice extends his arms to block him. Rodri escapes from the side and tries to give an option to Alvarez to play the ball into this space here. Rice notices it and runs with Rodri to close him down. Alvarez takes it on his chest with a jump. Partey can't let him receive the ball unchallenged. He clatters into him from behind. Notice that his arms are spread out wide, and so it is not a foul. But Alvarez is quick and agile enough to get to the ball quickly. He knows that there's just too much crowd. He's facing backwards and in his own half. He kicks it out of danger. It comes to Haaland, who chests it to Rodri, but it falls a little behind him. Rodri's alarmed. He can't have a loose ball behind him. He rushes on to secure it quickly. But Martinelli gets to it first, sets it in first touch to Timber, and will run to get into this space here. Ball on the way, Rice scans to see who's giving the safe back pass option to Timber on this side. There's nobody there, so he starts moving there to provide one. Bernardo charges up to press him. As he receives it on a half turn, he wants to play it here. It's instinctive. If you receive from there, you must play it here. But there's no option here, so he turns back to use the safe back pass option. Rice immediately realizes that it's likely to come to him, so scans quickly to assess his space and time. Timber takes a big touch and looks up. Big touch, so Rice scans again. Bernardo sees Timber facing his own goal. That's his trigger to press, so he charges on. However, Timber takes a quick look back through the corner of his eye and sees him come from that side. Notice that Odegaard and Rodri both are looking away from the ball to read what else is happening. Now Timber's seen Bernardo come and it's hatching an evil plan in his head. He hops to adjust his stance, lands such that the ball stays under him, takes a big step to stop suddenly, drops shoulder and turns opposite to Bernardo's momentum. Finally, his revenge is complete for what Bernardo did to him earlier. He takes a big touch and looks up. Big touch, so Rodri scans quickly to read what are his options here. Martinelli keeps getting wider, freeing up more space for Timber to run into, which Rodri is now coming to close down as he intends to run with the dribbler. Bernardo too gives the chase as the man closest to the ball, and because he was the one who got fooled, he has to. Timber senses he's running into a crowd at a very high pace. It would be a mistake if he loses the ball there and is caught off position too. So he hops to adjust his body and passes to Martinelli. Bernardo changes the direction of his press. The pass is weaker than what it should be. Bernardo thinks he can intercept it and goes in even more aggressively. But the ball reaches Martinelli first. He adjusts his body and flicks it forward with his first step as he breaks into a run. Looks up. Bernardo keeps up the chase. Rodri keeps tracking back. Timber decides to run into the space behind, expecting a through ball. Walker's tracking Timber's run. Bernardo's tracking Martinelli's run. And Rodri stays close to make it a 3v2. Timber realizes that Martinelli intends to run himself into that space. He'll need to move elsewhere. But where? Over there, Kai's starting to prepare his space by beginning to move blindside of his centre back. Martinelli looks up. There's no option to cross. He decides to run a little further and looks up again. But Walker's well positioned to block his cross. He closes down Martinelli, forcing him to look down at the ball. Meanwhile, Rodri had anticipated that Walker will need to leave Timber and go to Martinelli. So he comes there to mark him. Timber sees the space behind and runs there, expecting Martinelli to pass there. But Martinelli misses the moment. Walker keeps getting closer, forcing him to make a decision quickly. Martinelli is troubled. He wants to shake Walker off. He fakes a cross. Walker jumps to block it. He then tries to turn, but Walker and Bernardo are onto him in a flash. Now, in my opinion, this was a rather poor play by Martinelli. I think he committed too early to his run, ran too fast without enough guile. Due to this, he had to look down at the ball more and missed two opportunities to use Timber. And even his fake cross wasn't convincing enough because he tried to do it at too high a speed. There wasn't enough backlift and the arms were not wide enough to make it look convincing. He relied too much on speed alone to make space for himself. He should have reduced his speed a little and mixed it with a change of pace, a change of direction, a fake shot, a drop of shoulder, or some other skill. Well, the opportunity for the cross is gone now and he's trapped in a 2v1. But he's a fighter and wouldn't give up so easily. He jostles with Bernardo for the ball and quite accidentally hits him in the groin. Bernardo flinches for a second and by sheer luck, Martinelli gets the ball again. He looks up and plays back to Rice. Rice receives it on a half turn, but his touch is a bit too heavy. Alvarez sees the heavy touch and charges on to nick it. However, Rice recovers and toe pokes it backward. Alvarez thinks it's too slow a pass. He charges to the ball, but it's Gabriel who gets to it first. Rice tells him to play inside to Partey, who's in space. Look at that little deception from Gabriel. He keeps his body profile open towards Rice to make Alvarez think that he's going to play there. And then suddenly, he takes his first touch in the opposite direction and hops and twists his body mid-air to control the ball. Partey anticipates that it's coming to him and scans quickly to assess his space in time. Alvarez continues to press. Gabriel looks up and realizes that Haaland's about to come from Partey's blind side. He plays backwards for safety. Notice City's defensive formation. Back four are in a straight line. The two midfielders are just above them to provide cover to them. The two wingers have tucked in to make the team compact. Strikers up top and a roaming centre forward to run and fill gaps. Ball's on its way to Saliba. Gabriel and White drop to give options on either side. It's a backwards pass by Arsenal. So City's backline moves to push up the offside trap. Ball came from this side, so Saliba collects and turns to play it to that side. He looks up. Saka's getting wider. Grealish notices him look up and turns round to see what he's looking at. Notices Saka and moves to get into the passing lane to him. And as he moves wider, Odegaard sees this space emerge. He comes in to give option. Kovacic notices Odegaard's movement and comes up to close him down. It would be really dangerous if Odegaard's allowed to turn here with the ball. Odegaard senses the press from behind and plays back first touch to White. Grealish is the closest man. He moves up to press. Saliba drops to give option on this side. Saka is dropping there. Look how well Saka does here. He drops a step lower than where the ball is coming, hoping to pull Akanji up. Crouches as he stops with a big step. Hops and receives the ball on back foot with a half turn and attempts to run at Akanji. Now notice how well Akanji did in the situation. He knows he wouldn't be able to intercept the ball, so holds Saka at just the right distance to not allow him to run in behind. Notice how both his feet are in the air as he drags the ball, keeping it under his body. Akanji runs backwards, staying one step ahead of him, ready to step across his line and break his run if he tries to flick and run. One loose touch by Saka and he'll stick his leg and poke the ball out. Saka reduces his stride length, thereby reducing his pace a little. He's making Akanji slow down. And then suddenly, in one smooth motion, he flicks the ball forward with his first stride and breaks into a run. This is the kind of change of pace that Martinelli didn't use on his run earlier. Saka tries to cut across Akanji's line, but Akanji is nasty. Well, good players need to be. He uses his arm to push Saka away. Saka takes a big step to keep his balance and looks up to assess his crossing options. Kai had run forward, expecting a cross behind the defensive line and had dragged Stones with him. Diaz too anticipated a cross behind defensive line and had positioned himself to block it. Saka sees that his only option is to release it quickly into this space. Kai too notices it and tries to drop there, but it's too late now. Akanji is caught up with Saka and he sticks his leg out to block that cross. The ball goes out of play. Look how City raise their hands to claim it and compare it to a half-hearted attempt made by Kai. But all that aside, this was amazing work by Akanji. He's on a roll since the match started, both offensively and defensively. Ref awards City the ball. Saka laughs in disbelief. It should have been a corner. But during the match, it all happens so quickly that the referee also has to look for cues supporting his decisions. 4 City players raising their hands and 2 doing chest bumps are more believable than one guy making a half-hearted attempt. Ref awards a goal kick. Well, that's it for this part. See you in part 5.